Hello, everybody. Thank you for being here. I start my talk with the name of what will be my next exhibition coming up in 2 months, called Coalition of Amateurs. Perhaps to start with what will be the end of the talk and to make some sense. I intend myself as a designer, as creation of life situations. What I mean by amateur is lover, appassionato, and non-professional, and a coalition which is an alliance for a shared goal from individuals of different sensibilities. I hope that this will start to make more sense later on. This is maybe helps describe it. This is my team, all of us working together on a big wall drawing. I'll explain more of that as we go forward. And then the structure of my studio, which is called Jerszy Seymour Design Workshop, and the workshop being an important concept to how we operate, the workshop being a physical place for trying out materials, processes, but also a place for mental sharing of ideas and discussion and open to debate. So I just show some pictures from the workshop. This is experimenting with biomaterials. This is in the lift in our big storage area. Some of the chairs that I designed for Magis. This is after doing a music session where we also used the chairs from Magis. Here you see doing technical static tests. The underneath of the chair. Working with materials. Part of a colour party, which was a utopian research. Clothing line called Tape, which replaced stitching with tape. Part of a branding system for glass. I'll show that afterwards. More of the workshop. Testing out inflatables. Material colours. The Vitra edition project, New Order. Which is actually an open source project, so if anybody wants to copy these, you can download them from our website, the plans. Some tests for that project. A new mixing stick. Music, so original soundtracks. My music friends. The underneath of the Magis easy table. Also some industrial projects, so this is a new set of hair dryers for Moulinex. And a drawing which is called Casa Occupata, which in Italian means occupied house, having two senses of the word occupata means having something to do, and occupied house is in a squatted house. So this is just a house built about doing lots of things. And these are maybe the three important words of my philosophy would be doing, being, and sharing. So I start at the beginning with the project, my beginning, which is a project called SCUM. SCUM is a word that comes from the Latin meaning scuma, the Latin scuma meaning foaming or bubbling, but that in the English became to mean the negative meaning the filthy foam on top of pollution and the lowest of all things and people. SCUM for me is a primordial soup. It's a place outside of moralism, outside of industry, outside of society. It is an idea of being in itself or of design in itself. It is the concept of free form and no form and the chance to find new form. It is a beginning and an end. So, could you do the film now, please? quick fast forward. So the SCUM project was a series of places for people to come. There was never any commercial connection to the works. It was about using materials in an open nature, letting them form themselves. This was the first exhibition called Welcome to SCUM City. It was a series of lamps, just because lamps are lamps and they light themselves. It's quite nice. And free-form soft seating made from polyurethane foam on the sides, and some big speakers which were playing some of the sounds that you heard earlier on. And it was just about really enjoying the material and what it does, and about offering also a place for people to reflect on their inner self. These are the speakers. This is a project called House in a Box. It was a kind of autonomous living project, also part of the SCUM project. Using inflatables and spraying polyurethane foam over the top, it was possible to create very fast, large-scale structures. This was 150 square meters created in about a day and a half. You can see some of the spraying. A bit of the inside. And this was in New York. This was called More SCUM, and it was in a way starting to discuss the material as an anti-brand, taking over all things found on the street just to create furniture. More enjoyment of the texture of the material. And this was maybe the biggest single structure that I made in the foam material, which was in Tokyo. It was about a 15-meter diameter or width. Here you can see the inside. It was built during a hurricane. So that's how it got its quite angry texture, which was quite nice. And then this was the Brussels Brain, which was a center made for a symposium on the future of design. So it was a very apocalyptical vision. All of the pieces around are made from found objects, which also comes in part of the SCUM concept. Broken down cars. Here you can see spraying soft foam over what is essentially a chaise longue that became soft with the foam on top. Other bits and pieces used to make furniture and reflection places. Here also from the streets of Brussels. And this, going to other materials, the use of glass. This was a series of glass called Ken Cuts, which I called my alter ego, my hooligan alter ego at the time. Ken Cuts goes to Murano and cuts his own story into the glass while it's hot and soft. This is the whole collection from left to right. That's Ken Cuts, Cut, Fuck Cut, Ken Cuts Cuts, Seven Cuts, Ken and Katie Cuts, and Love Cut, which is KK with a heart. And, well, it's quite a hard story, actually. They're in red, and you can see here how the branding was working. And then the two poles of the story, love and hate. And love is a very... I started with the word amateur, the coalition of amateurs, and amateur meaning lover. And of course, it's not to discuss love in a light way. It's not some idealistic place. So it's to remember that love and hate always come with a polemic. Here's the branding of the pig piece. Also, love of found objects, so just taking a saddle and using that to kind of resourcefulness. And the last of the SCUM objects, which is the first one that actually became something that stays in time, metal done in metal, which is actually the end of the SCUM projects. So one piece that remains in time in physicality. So from the SCUM projects, which was really about design in itself or being in itself. It was really a nowhere place in the inner self. I come to Living Systems, which is an exhibition that I did at Vitra, I think 2.5 years ago. Living Systems was about the economy of the individual. Maybe I read a quote here, but a modified quote. How can I sit down to design before I've stood up to live? This is an adaptation of who was the first anarchist, Henry David Thoreau, from the book Walden, who discussed American writer, who discussed the economy of the individual, and he went to live in the woods by Lake Walden for 2 years just to see what was essential. And so my interest was to look at this point from the contemporary day as a designer, and perhaps as less of a moralist than Henry David Thoreau. So I wanted to live in a place and create all the things myself. I realized that plastic is the most contemporary of materials. I like it. But I'm not very good at digging huge wells to get petroleum from the bottom of the earth. But I do like potatoes, being a very kind of people's plant. So I developed a plastic from potatoes and created from this plastic all the pieces that I needed to live with. So here's the exhibition. All the pieces were made from, it's actually called polylactic acetate. It's a potato starch plastic. This is the production. You see the sand molds that everything was produced over. It was just a single bed, a single chair, and a desk and a table. Created the whole exhibition. And of course all the plants around to create more of the plastic. And this was some more of the molds in our workshop. So what for me came interesting from that exhibition wasn't so much that whether it was possible to have an individual or autonomous economy, was that actually making the things was really great. The doing was really great. This was something very important. So I come to the first discussion of the amateur, presented in a project called First Supper. So this is where the amateur first starts to talk about himself. I read you the text from the entranceway. First Supper is a nowhere place, an amateur soup and an open-ended utopian question mark. It is cooked on a non-commodity flame and made with the ingredients of doing, sharing and being. Should it exist? Could it exist? What will we eat? What will we talk about? You're invited to dinner by Jerszy Seymour and the Coalition with Love. Please enjoy and vive la utopia. And to discuss about utopia is quite important for me now, because that was a kind of no-no word since the end of modernism, that communism and capitalism, as we can see it, has failed. And everybody got scared to talk about the word utopia again. And I find that a really now interesting subject. What could be the utopian question? This was the kitchen, where we produced everything. So all the material to make all of the furniture was produced in this kitchen, as was all of the food. Here you can see the whole setup. This is in the MAC in Vienna. So everything was produced in 5 days. In 5 days we produced everything, all the furniture, made the food, made the dinner, did a children's workshop and deconstructed everything. So all the material gets reused for a next project. The exhibition is kind of taken up into two places. The far left corner of the kitchen is the production, and the tables is the consumption. And on the right-hand side is the gallery, which is all things left over from the production that become testament to the project. Here you can see the material, which is kind of a modern wax. It's melting at 50 degrees, really enjoyable to use. Some of the sticks used for stirring. More of the pouring. This is making a stick, the sink in multicolors. And the texture of the tabletops. A joint, like a Rietveld joint, but much, much faster and easier. The underside of the benches. Each one of these took about, I don't know, maybe 5 minutes to make. Another joint. You can see more of the tables. Improvised oven, because we ran out of enough ovens. The library, which was very important. There was all the books that I've been reading in the time previous to the exhibition, with pumpkins, because we made pumpkin soup to use as occasional furniture. Sticks and boards as the gallery, which were part of the production and then became the decoration. Some kind of diagrams that look very organized, but were not. These were actually for holding up the legs while the material was setting, the 1 minute that it took to cool down, but they looked like ducks, so we left them in there. Vive la Utopia. And then all the food, of course, was the texture of the tabletops we mirrored in the food. The food was all made from root materials, stuff close to the ground. This was a pumpkin soup with everybody actually got a different mix every time. So here you can see the dinner. It was quite an interesting event. Some people knew what was going on and other people didn't. Some people really went and sat and read books in the corner, and it was really interesting. So I come on quickly to Amateur Furniture, which was another intervention at Esther Schipper Gallery in Berlin. It was just actually to reconsider their entrance of the gallery, to turn it into a kind of social place, a kind of sit-in, stargazing sit-in. So again using the wax, the amateur material, with really easily made molds, pouring material out. Here you can see making some of the pieces, the texture. So this was amateur furniture. It was a kind of working environment with most important thing was the plants, so the people in the gallery had to water the plants all the time. So I come to the most recent project, which is Salon des Amateurs. Salon des Amateurs means the living room of the amateurs. It also maybe has a reference to Salon des Refusés, which was the art fair in the 18th century, where all the people that weren't allowed anywhere else were allowed to come. Excuse me a second. Salon des Amateurs. So after the First Supper, the Salon des Amateurs was a kind of place for people to come and reflect on what being the amateur could be. So we needed a piece of furniture where people could sit and something for them to look at and think about what the amateur could be. So the project ended up being, in some ways, a copy of the War Room in Dr. Strangelove, by chance, with a big round table, and round lamp and chairs, and the big board, which was kind of showing the master plan. But instead of the big board, instead of the round table, we had a round swimming pool, because this seemed much more important way for the amateur to live than a kind of bureaucratic situation. It was also important actually to say that the reason of the dinner was, if we're going to talk about some utopian questions in a modern way, then you can't do it, in fact, in this kind of hierarchical situation that we're in now, of me in front of a conference, but in fact in a mixed-up situation like a dinner where there's no hierarchy. Here you can see the diagram, which I'll explain a bit more of it later on. We used sea salt in the water, so that's the view at the bottom. This is the heating system, so it was actually one of the ovens used to produce everything, got the tubes passed into the pots, which we used to pour the material, a hole smashed into the side with the tube going through the oven part and then coming back out to heat the water. Here you can see it maybe a bit better. And that was the Bialetti that we had our coffee with every morning. Oops, so hang on. That was the opening. So I just show you the other important, if I can go back. Oh yeah. And so of course we had towels ready for everybody, and a selection of clear liquids in bottles, which was either pure grain alcohol or water. But so this was the opening. So everybody was, it got quite wild. It was really, really nice. The water was at 33 degrees. This is a nice picture of this guy really fascinated by the heating system. Yeah, getting a bit later. Yeah, it was nice. This is a Frank Gehry museum in Hereford, so it was nice to see it quite messed up. People afterwards. Yeah. So I finish on this, on the diagram actually, which was the most important thing of the project, the creation of this diagram. That we talk about design, the amateur's position in design, and some of the subjects of design, which would be distribution, energy, economy, material, production, and mix that with the amateur values of sharing, doing, being, love, appassionato, and start to see that when they're all mixed up, they start to make some important points. So doing and production comes to the hand as the ultimate tool, manufacture, hand make. My modification of the Marx line, fulfillment of the, Marx said put the means of production in the hands of the people. I discussed put the fulfillment of the production in the hands of the people. The fact that the beginning of human reflection is with the opposing finger and thumb, therefore the hand is a very important tool. The importance of no abstraction between reflection and doing, of the brain to hand. Masturbation is something interesting. Joy equals human knowledge, luxury, favor, and privilege. So we see the hand as the key of pleasure. In the material part, we talk about hot wax, 60 degrees, which is the temperature at which the material melts, is the temperature at which love flows. We write everybody is an artist, which is the Joseph Beuys line, but cross out the artist and just say everybody is. Wax being a kind of connecting material, connecting people and things, a changeable, transformable material for changeable, transformable desires, connecting to lava and volcanoes. And then water is also a very important material, as being the closest material as a kind of extension of material on your body. A little sketch of a volcano with a kind of rock pool in the top being actually the ideal situation for the Salon des Amateurs. Man as the aquatic ape. Going up to economy and energy and the discussion of use value, which was Marx, of communism, of exchange value, of capitalism, and the amateur proposing energy value, also connecting that to love, as being something as a transformable exchange, an untransformable exchange. We also propose that you stop buying, end capitalism, and do, be, and share to the amateurtopia. The discussion of peaceful resistance, also the understanding that love is not an ideal, but that love can also tear us apart. Amateur Declaration of Rights, open source Pi, comes up to a whole set of subjects. So this is actually this diagram is available on our blog, and everybody will be allowed to comment and adjust it as it grows. So it's actually an open source project. So I thank you. The Coalition of Amateurs will come to its next project in June in the Mudam in Luxembourg. So everybody's invited to come and take part. Thank you.